Ilia Ponomarenko is the defence reporter with the Kyiv Independent, and he joins us now live from the capital city. Ilia, thanks for joining us. Great to have you on the programme. Let's start with those comments earlier from President Zelenskyy. He said the country on the brink of survival. It's an interesting turn of phrase. Would you agree with that assessment?
Well, definitely we have an all-out war against one of the biggest military powers in the world. So we are definitely on the brink of survival. But the thing behind this is that we are having a successful defense against this military power. So yes, we are under existential threat. Russia has not given up its plan to eliminate Ukraine as a sovereign state, as an independent nation. And as far as the war goes, we see that it is aimed at actually taking up the full control of the Ukrainian territory, including major cities, including Kiev. So yes, what is at stake now is the existence of Ukraine as this nation. But after this months of war, we are on the path of successful defense against such plans.
So is the fear now that the Russian tactics and their strategy will change, and it will result in increasing shelling of the suburban areas to try and soften up the civilians and really try to damage morale?
Yeah, it's definitely the case that they have failed to achieve any sort of military victory, decisive military victory, after almost a month of intense fighting. So we definitely expect Russia to be ultimately switching to its tactics of forcing the general population of Ukraine into surrender, effectively surrender, of rendering pressure upon the political leadership into a sort of surrendering. But I should say that despite all the brutalities that we see in Ukrainian cities in terms of civilian shelling and multiple attacks and bloody attacks, the Ukrainian will, the general population's will, is not even close to being ready to surrender despite all the blood spilled. We had this recent poll saying that 93% of the Ukrainians are still very positive about the outcome of this war, and 93% of Ukrainians still believe that Ukraine will prevail in this conflict. So despite all the brutalities, Russia is not even close to having this new goal achieved.
What more can you tell us about the encircled city of Chernihiv? I understand just north of the capital, Kyiv. We've seen reports that the population have been turned into hostages. There's no humanitarian aid, and we understand civilians are soon to be evacuated to the Kursk region of Russia. Can you confirm that?
Yes, this is what we have, and what happened to the city of Chernihiv is the brightest example of the new Russian tactics of blocking, encircling the cities and forcing the civilian population into despair and surrender. And this is what they are trying to do in many other cities, in major cities as well, including Kharkiv, and for instance, the city of Mariupol is suffering really hard about this. We have the latest reports about the city of Slavuchich, which is close to Chernihiv, also surrounded, also deprived of humanitarian aid and food and basic supplies. So yes, they are trying to do that, especially when it comes to cities like Chernihiv, which are absolutely key. The control of the city is absolutely vital for them to bring up the same situation against Kiev, for instance. So yeah, it's the very brutal war in which the civilian population is used as a weapon. The suffering of human beings in Ukraine is used as a weapon. But so far, I must also say that the Ukrainian defenses, including in cities like Chernihiv or cities like Sumy, which are effectively blocked and surrounded, Russians are not getting what they want right now, because even in these encircled cities, the Ukrainian resistance is very hard so far.
No city, though, seems to be more important than Mariupol. You mentioned it. It seems like it's a desperate humanitarian situation there. How much longer do you think Ukraine can hold that city? And what are the consequences for Ukraine if and when it falls?
Obviously, Mariupol is the worst affected city in terms of, civilian suffering. And we can see that, particularly in Mariupol, Russia is blocking any, civilian convoys trying to leave the city, or any humanitarian supplies trying to enter the city. So many civilians are trying to flee on their own, at their own risk. And the situation is still the same in terms of many other cities. But if Mariupol falls, it's a big question if it falls, because the military power in Mariupol, defending Mariupol, has proved to be very strong and very intense. And since the Ukrainian military believe that the main focus of Russia in this invasion would be the east, particularly Donbass, so we have the best military power concentrated in the cities. So far, it's a big question if Mariupol falls. But I think what we can be sure about is that we should expect the Ukrainian garrison in the city to endure this attack for several weeks, I guess, at the worst. If it should it fall, we can be sure that Russia is not getting anything other than rubbles and ruins, because it has already destroyed the housing potential of the city, and also the industrial potential of the city, its economic endurance. So if we happen to lose Mariupol in this regard, Russia is definitely having this direct bridge between its occupied Ukrainian south and Crimea and the mainland Russia. Obviously, this seems to be a very clear goal in that particular area, and it feels more like a political goal, the step of political significance, taking this corridor, as we call it, between mainland Russia and Crimea at any price. But in terms of military, we have this consensus in defense community of Ukraine that militarily taking Mariupol would not let them free up a lot of military power to use them against the other parts of the country. So, like I said, this feels more like a political goal driven by the Kremlin.
Okay, Ilia, thank you very much indeed. Ilia Ponomarenko there, defense reporter with the Kyiv Independent from the Ukraine.